An UNPIVOT function? Brilliant! Check it out, aaUNPIVOT. Highlight your data, press enter, and there's your data unpivoted. You don't have to actually care how this works. If you want to find out, stay tuned, but all you need to do is download this file, link in the description, copy this formula, go into any other workbook, paste it. Okay, it won't work because you haven't highlighted any data, but equals aaUNPIVOT is then available to you. And if you want to change the name of it, you go into Formula, Name Manager, and there it is, aaUNPIVOT. You can edit and change the name. You know, I recommend giving it something other than UNPIVOT, so if the Excel team ever do build an UNPIVOT function, it won't clash. So put a little, some sort of identifier at the start, FN or whatever you want. Okay, but there we go, aaUNPIVOT. All right. Also, if I come back here, let me show you another use case here. Why would you do this, by the way? Or you might want to do pivot tables off this data, or you might want to do some sort of SUMIF type thing. Just often, if your data is nicely organized in individual columns, it's better for analysis. So in a bit, I will show you how you can do this with Python, one line of code, with Power Query, my preferred option. But check this out, all sorts of options in here as well. So that was just for one standard column, but equals aaUNPIVOT. Okay, highlight my data. This time I've got two static columns, department and year. Okay, so comma, how many static columns are there on the left? 2. Comma, does it have headers? Yes, I have selected headers, so I'll just leave that okay. Do I want to remove the blanks? Let's say no, so false. Comma, what's the new heading going to be called? Months. And what's the other new heading with all the numbers in? Let's call it values. Okay, or actually let's call it units. It's called values by default. Units. Okay, close the bracket, press enter, and there we have it. 2 columns, and then months and units. And the blanks are being included. What if I don't want the blanks? Or check this out, it's live, okay? So if I put 33 in there, it's there, okay? If I delete that, what if I don't want the blanks? So I go back here, get rid of the word false. Blanks have gone. As soon as I put a number in here, it comes back in, okay? I've tested this on about 10,000 rows with about 10 columns. The speed's okay. If you get more than that, it gets a bit slow, okay? So there we go, aaUNPIVOT. So how do we do this? How did I build it? Quick demo of how you use Python and how you use Power Query. But then I'll really get into the weeds of how this function works. All right, let's go. Right, so before I show you how to build the UNPIVOT function, if you care, then I'll quickly show you doing it in Python and my preferred option, Power Query. The downside of Power Query isn't instantly updated, but okay, so Python, I'm a complete Python beginner. So I got ChatGPT to help me with this. I've got a little Python in Excel GPT. I'll share a link. It's publicly available. I'll share a link in the description. You do need a pro license to access it though. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to go formulas, insert Python, paste that formula in that I just copied. So basically it's saying data frame is equal to the Excel data in A1 to N9, which is that block, okay? Then dot melt, which is the UNPIVOT function in Python. Then it says the sort of static columns are department and year. There they go, department and year. You have to hard code that label in. And then the new names are going to be month and units. And then drop the blanks and essentially get rid of the index column that gets generated. And that's it. So I click on the tick. It should put a data frame in here. There we go. And if I click on it, you can see the data with that sort of index column, but I don't want that. So I will then go here and say, actually put it in Excel as a spilling grid. There we go. So there's my data, unpivoted using Python. The order is a bit odd. I have to dig into how to sort it in exactly the same order as this, because with my aaUNPIVOT function, if I highlight the data here and I say there's 2 static columns on the left, so comma 2, and essentially that's it. I'll just go close, enter. You'll notice that Feb, March, April is just the order here. And if January, was 10, January's in there now, the Python recalculated as well. So, you get the idea. The order in here is a bit more fixed in terms of the order here. In here you can sort of sort the order, etc. Okay, right, Power Query. I would highlight this and I would name the range. So I've named this by going into this cell and calling it PQ demo data, or you can turn it into a table, which is what I would normally do, Control T, right? But once you have, you can then right click and say get data from table or range. So I'm just giving it a named range. We pull this data in, we highlight the 2 columns there, the static ones, right click, unpivot other columns, and then you can rename these, or you can just click in here and say, okay, this was going to be called months, and this one is going to be called units. And there we go. All right, and then we can go close and load to, and I'll just load it to a table in an existing worksheet just here, and click OK. So there's my unpivoted data. The thing is though, if I update this with 33, clearly this doesn't auto update. So right click, refresh, then puts February back in. Plus it's a little bit trickier to keep the blanks. So I quite like the new function. Right, there we go. So how do we build it? So the aim here is to unpivot this little block of data and get something that looks like this. Okay, so I've got a equals aaUNPIVOT basic function, which has got less features, just to help explain how I built this. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for, and I'm going to talk you through how it works, because it is not simple. All right, this is complicated. I use ChatGPT to help me build it. I wouldn't have been able to build it myself from scratch. And, this is built upon the backs of giants. So people like Mike Girvin, Excel is Fun, have done functions on this. And I'm sure ChatGPT took their work to help me. All right, so shout out to Mike Girvin, Excel is Fun, and probably a whole bunch of other people that I'm sort of, I'm not taking the time to look at their videos and content. So thanks you to those people as well. All right, so let me just show you. You really need, via add-ins, you really need Excel Labs to help you write lambdas. Otherwise, it's a real fiddly process. So Excel Labs is an add-in. Okay, I've dragged it over onto the left here. Normally it appears over on the right. Okay, but I'm just going to drag it over on the left. I've done other videos on Excel Labs and lambdas. This is not a beginner level. If you've never heard of this stuff before, it's probably not the video you want to be watching. Okay, just use it, use the function, and then go back and watch some other videos. I'll put links below. Okay, so the unpivot basic function is really, the core of it is this make array block of code, and that's the bit I'm going to explain, which is quite hard to get your head around. Okay, so, or at least for me. So this is the key bit, and then there's a couple of parameters that are coming in. The static column count, in this case just 1, the number of rows, the number of columns, and the number of columns you want to unpivot. Okay, so we're going to work our way through this example, and I've just color coded the column numbers and the row numbers to try and make it a bit more obvious here. All right, so what we're saying, and it really comes down to building a little grid of column and row references that you can then use to index the data, ultimately doing something like this. Okay, you are indexing the data by a certain number of rows and columns. So to start with, let's have a look at this one to give us our list of sort of static column values. So we're basically indexing this block of data, but we are going to go 4 times for row A and then 4 times for row B, for the row B, row 2. But then each time I index, I only ever want column 1. So that's the column reference and that's the row reference. So we see A, B, 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 B. So if I put that in there, let me just press enter. So if I put this in here, it's saying, okay, reference that area by that and by that. So that's sort of, me manually creating part of this just to show you. And then the concept is this values column. We're going to go grab row 1, okay, but column 2, then column 3, then column 4, then column 5. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and then repeat that for row 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then if I index that, so that's me manually creating those row numbers, which you don't want to be doing, okay? You want it to be dynamic, and that's where the clever stuff happens, okay? So that's the goal, and then really you just stitch those two together, those two columns, to get this result. Okay, so let's take a look at this make array function. What on earth is that about? All right, so equals make array, which is basically creating a grid, sort of like an array, a block, okay, with a certain number of rows and a certain number of columns. So let's say I want it to be 8 rows, which is what I've got up here. Okay, there's 8 rows and 2 columns, okay, comma. And then you need a function, and it's called, you have to use a lambda function, which is basically telling it, hey, what do you want to do for each cell in that block of 8 by 2? Okay, and each cell has its own row reference and column reference. Okay, I'm just going to try and make this a bit wider. Hold on, let me just put a 1 in here for now and press enter. Okay, I'll make this a bit wider so we can see the formula a bit easier. Okay, so what I've said here is make an 8 by 2 grid, and for every row and column, put a 1 in there. Okay, so there's a 1, 1, 1. All right, so what we then want to do is just say, okay, rather than a 1, how about just giving me the row number? And I can press enter. Okay, so for every row and cell, it says grab me row, what the R is. So it's row 1, row 2. So that is coming from this lambda function. Okay, so as it's going down, creating the array, it's giving you row 1, row 2, row 3, and I'm just displaying that. You could also do this if I copy paste over here. Okay, you could do, okay, for every row and column, give me the column. So it's going, okay, this is column 1, column 2, column 1, column 2. All right, and then rather than hard coding in the 8, I want to say, look, there's 2 rows times 4 UNPIVOT columns. So rows 2 times the number of UNPIVOT columns, which is basically the number of columns minus the static number. Okay, so that becomes a bit more dynamic, and the same thing. And then rather than the 2 that's hard coded in, that is simply the number of static columns plus 1 more column. Okay, the unpivoted column. So that's now a dynamic array. Okay. Same thing here. I'm just going to copy paste to keep it simple, and then change it from R to C. So we've basically got this grid, okay, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we've got this grid of 1s and 2s. Okay, just the column references. Right, but I don't want to bring back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to bring back 1, 1, 1, 1, and then 2, 2, 2, 2. And this is where this integer divide function comes in. So, which is going to be this part. It's going to be the bit that generates the row reference. Okay, and then the column reference we'll do with a mod function, and then that's really the 2 complicated bits. The rest of it is just stitching it together. So this is the bit that's just, I wouldn't have come up with this myself. This is ChatGPT. And I actually saw a video by Mike Gervin that used a very similar technique. So I'm assuming that ChatGPT probably stole it off him. Okay. So what we want to do is, if we take, okay, equals this little grid, hash, okay, that's the grid. All right. And then if we simply divided it into the number of columns, because we're sort of flipping it around, so we want, you know, if there's 8 rows, I want 4 lots of 1s and 4 lots of 2s. So, you know, dividing it by the 8 can help us, or dividing it by the 4 can help us bucket that. So I get this sort of basics. Now I can sort of round those to 1 and potentially round those to 2. Okay, but if I round, I get 1, 2, 3, 4 1s and 1, 2, 3, 4 2s. The safest way of doing it, so it works for odd numbers and even numbers, is this. You basically deduct a little -1, okay, from, and actually you have to put brackets around it, so it doesn't do 1 divided by. It needs to be this little array first. Okay. I can then use integer to round it down to the nearest whole number, so down to 0, down to 1, etc. Alright, so we're going to put an int in there, just to give a whole number, and close the bracket. So now we have 4 zeros and 4 1s. So it's just a bit of maths to try and get this sort of repeating group. I want it to start at 1, so I'm going to do a +1 at the end. So that little chunk there, that 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, that's what this bit, okay, of the make array function is doing. Okay, right. Then we want to do the column part. So this is where I want essentially this 2, 3, 4, 5 part. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm going to start off in the same sort of way. So equals, and then this little grid hash. Okay, and I'm going to deduct the 1, just because these things tend to work better when it starts at 0 base. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And rather than divide, I want to be able to go, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to be able to sort of start over. So to do that sort of pattern, you use a mod function. So let's do this, mod, okay, which is a whole number, and it basically calculates the remainder. So the divisor is 4. I want it to run in sort of sequences of 4. So there we go. Close the bracket. And that gives us 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. But I want it to start 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so +1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The +1, okay, I want to start at number 2, which is basically add on the number of static cols. So then it starts 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then the actual value itself, okay, we can just do index the data, okay, and the row number is going to come from here, hash, okay, and the column number is going to come from over here, column 1, column 2. So there's the breakdown. Okay, there's my first column. I don't really care about this one at this point. Okay, it's just I'm actually going to only grab this column from here. So that's my static column. And for the UNPIVOT value, I just want to index again the data, comma. Okay, coming back over here, remember this one, the little rows. This is going to be the row numbers, comma, and then the column numbers is going to be this mod. So there's my 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then I basically just want this column from this array and this column from this array. So the last little part of the function is saying, look, if the static number of columns is less than your static, then just grab this column here. So here we go. So equals if And then we come over here and say, look, if this count is less than or equal to the number of static columns, then we're going to grab the first array. And this just allows the array to handle in more than one static column, so it's a little bit extra. Okay, so we're going to handle this array. So it really is going to grab the first column, otherwise grab this array. And that's what's going on in this chunk of code. Like I say, you may not care, but have a look at that code. See if my explanation, I'll leave these instructions and that sort of breakdown in here. You can download this file and take a look. All right. I've made the actual UNPIVOT main. Okay. The main one has got some optional parameters in here. So there's a few more if statements. Okay. If use headers. Okay. If is omitted for the blanks. If is omitted for the headers. So there's a few more things, then it stacks the headers on top if there are headers and doesn't bother if there aren't headers. So there's a few more things going on in the main one. I have made this available in my dedicated gist. So if you go to this gist here, okay, UNPIVOT Lambda by Win Hopkins. Okay, you can just potentially copy that formula if you want to, or if you copy the link, again, I'll put it in the description and it'll be in this file just up here. If you go to Excel Labs and you open it up, okay, so it's open up on the left here for me, it'll open up on the right for you by default. I could go to like modules and I could download this, paste that gist in, add it to I could say a new module if you didn't want it to go into your main one. Okay, demo, import. And there's my aaUNPIVOT Lambda in here. If you do that, then it'll be equals demo.aaUNPIVOT. So you can just copy paste it into your main workbook and then click save. That saves it available in your name manager. Okay, so it'll be in here under under demo. Or if you put in your main workbook, sorry, it'll be in here under aaUNPIVOT. Okay, pretty technical that second half of that video, okay? That's a hard function. It took me quite a while to just debug it and break it down and work out what was going on. I added elements step by step. You know, the optional functionality in here was added. You know, it took me a fair few goes to add these elements in terms of optional values, but ChatGPT was really helpful. Check it out. Check out the little GPT I've built to help with that, writing that sort of stuff. Let me know what you think. Okay. Use cases. I might find this useful once in a while. I'm going to stick with Power Query as much as I can, but it's lovely to have this option when I need it. All right. Check out some other videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.